John Reynolds was murdered at his scrap metal yard in Christchurch on a Sunday morning in 1996.
I feel like he was just pounced, like he was just attacked.
This is calculated.
Whatever hit him must have pretty much killed him straight away.
He was 55 years old, a happily married father of 2.
I just collapsed to the floor, screaming.
To this day, John's family don't know who killed him or why.
It wasn't a random thief. It was someone he knew.
Yeah, he must have done something to upset somebody.
I guess it had something to do with his past. I have no idea.
3 psychics will turn to the spirit world for answers.
So someone didn't like you.
You don't want to know what I'm going to do to you.
It's like someone's teaching him a lesson.
Can the psychics find answers for the grieving family?
My head hurt so bad,
Head, like holding my head.
and there was just blood everywhere.
And clues to find the killer?
I thought that my world had been taken away from me.
It's been more than 20 years since John Reynolds' callous murder. His daughter Lara has never forgotten the man who meant the world to her.
He was a good man. He was very honest, and he was one of the most honest people I've ever come across. He was hardworking, and he was a good dad, and he always tried his best.
John Reynolds was born in England in 1941. His parents Mona and Tom had 4 children and raised their family in working-class Britain.
It was a tough life. Nana and Pop had had their own home, and but of course with the duration of the war, their home had been bombed, so they lost everything.
John's character was shaped by his early childhood experiences. He adored his mother, but his relationship with his father was fraught.
For some reason, my granddad just disliked my dad, and he could never, I don't think he knew why. He never said anything about it. It was my grandmother that told me about it. They wanted to have a better future, and I think just after the war, England wasn't offering that. A lot of people were coming out to New Zealand and Australia.
John's parents spent several years in Melbourne before settling in Christchurch in the 60s. By then, John was in his 20s.
He thought New Zealand was absolute paradise. He knew how lucky he was. He knew how wonderful Christchurch was. He loved New Zealand. They hadn't been there for that long when my dad popped into the local dairy and met my mum. She was working in the dairy that her brother-in-law owned.
Hi, can I get some books, please?
Books.
My dad used to go in to the dairy asking for umbugs, which translated means humbugs, which were a little lolly sweet.
Thanks.
Charmed by his good looks, John quickly became a regular customer.
More books?
Yeah.
They got married fairly quickly. They were a beautiful couple, absolutely beautiful.
The newlyweds had 2 children. Sean, their firstborn, followed quickly by Lara. Their family home in Deans Ave backed onto the Avon River, which turned out to be a gold mine for John.
I think he'd seen some of the bottle-os there, and I think he'd gone over to see what were they doing. And that's when he found out there was money to be made in bottles. So henceforth he started, whenever there was a flood, must go and check to see what's been unearthed in the river. He'd get into the river and yeah, more often than not, he'd get a few good old bottles coming out of the old river. He would bring out a marbly or a torpedo or something. It was quite exciting. We were just happy to be with Dad.
It was the perfect hobby for a magpie like John, and he joined the Christchurch Antique Bottle and Collectibles Club.
Well, I collected old bottles and antique bottles. I came out of Akaroa, I collected as a kid and I had a wee collection. And there was an ad in the newspaper and it was for a garage sale down Southampton Street with old bottles for sale. So I rocked up there and got talking to John, and then he dragged me along to join a club.
John and Nigel Harrison became great friends.
He was a very genuine guy and a really down-to-earth sort of a person. There was an honesty about him. He was a bit of a main chance guy. If there was something in the wind where he could make a buck out of it, you know, he would take that opportunity. But he was a fair and generous guy with it.
Over the years, the friends went on many bottle collecting trips together, with John always keeping tight-lipped about his past. Until one day, when he revealed why the family had left England.
He said to me that he had worked as a bit of a minder and that he needed to get out and went to Australia. He said to me once that he was going to be killed one day. And from that position, I got really concerned about that, and he was very sincere about that. I guess it had something to do with his past. I have no idea.
Does the past hold the clue to John's murder? John Reynolds, who was brutally murdered in Christchurch in 1996, was a family man devoted to his wife and children. But his life in New Zealand was a far cry from what he left behind in England.
On the ferry going to a bottle show, a national bottle show in Wellington, and we were leaning out there on the railing just talking about things, and that's when he started telling me about his life in London and in Australia.
John revealed to Nigel that he thought one day he might be killed.
Well, he told me that he'd been shot, but he showed me some bullet holes in him, and I think it was pretty much at that point he said he retired out to New Zealand pretty much. Yeah, it was a weird story, one hell of a story to have to listen to, you know.
John worked in the railway yards, but he was made redundant in 1980. Seizing the opportunity, he went into business for himself. Finding a warehouse on Hazeldean Road on the outskirts of Christchurch, he opened a scrap metal yard.
I just saw it was an extension of what he was doing out of his backyard and garage. There was just a small warehouse with a pile of metal in the corner. He'd come back from a demolition with his penny bags stuffed full of wire and be burning them all from the backyard, burning the plastic off, value adding, I guess, to his scrap. It was a fairly small operation, but one that John obviously worked hard at.
He was doing what he wanted to do. He loved to work. Working was his thing. He just loved working.
But John's no-nonsense attitude was well known and sometimes got him offside with staff and customers.
He was a wee bit abrupt sometimes with people, with customers and that. He rubbed them up the wrong way, but...
Don Miller was a fellow scrap dealer, often helping out John, picking up and dropping off large loads of metal.
Oh, sometimes I've seen him 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah. He'd just ring me up if he had something, yeah.
It was strictly a cash business, and that would often attract a criminal element looking to offload suspect goods.
There's a lot of people that get involved with it that probably do have some shady disposition.
Mate, I brought the copper. The copper's here, right? It's like $600.
If you've got a yard, you're going to expect to get some people who come in there that don't own what they've brought in.
Top grade, usually paying top dollar.
I have no doubt that there would have been some parts of that business that would have been pretty not so great.
I need that cash. I know you can get that cash. You got the cash thing out the back.
John was making good money and was known for carrying large amounts of cash on him. His friends and family thought he should be more security conscious.
I'd said to him, you know, be careful, watch your back. I'd said to him, Dad, you know, what you can see coming at you, you can deal with, but something that's coming from behind, you can't deal with.
I'm out of here, mate. See you later.
In keeping with his weekly routine, John was working alone on the morning of Sunday, the 28th of April, 1996. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, with several customers coming and going. At midday, John was closing up. He had agreed to take his wife shopping and was expected home by 1 p.m. He never arrived.
I had been at home that morning. I remember feeling very lifeless. My mother had phoned me concerned, but I didn't take any notice of it because I was thinking, okay, well, he's not home, but that's not the end of the world.
Following the phone call, Lara's mother made her way to the scrapyard.
John!
But since everything looked shut up, she assumed he'd left.
I think she said she was going to phone Uncle Michael. I'd been trying to contact Uncle Michael for him to go and have a look down there. He went inside the factory. It was quite dark because the lights weren't on. My dad was lying on the floor, and then I think he phoned my mother.
Jesus Christ!
Lara would never forget the next phone call from her mother.
I answered the phone.
What?
And she said that my father was dead, that he'd been murdered.
I don't understand.
And I just collapsed to the floor.
Dad!
Because I thought that my world had been taken away from me. After I'd stopped screaming and picked myself up off the floor, I carried on with my conversation with my mother.
I'll be there. I'll get there as fast as I can.
And I said I'd be down there as soon as I could.
Lara immediately flew to Christchurch, where some of her family members had gathered at their home.
I coerced my uncle Charlie to take me down to the factory where my dad was. So the last time I saw my dad, he was lying in a pool of his own blood. So I just sat there and I said a prayer. I don't know, it just seemed the right thing to do, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change a thing. And I was happy to have been able to have done that.
Actually, I was on holiday with a good friend of mine and his wife, who are bottle collectors, with my wife then and youngest daughter. We were in Surfers Paradise, and when we heard the news, it was a real shock, it was sort of out of the blue.
On the evening of April the 28th, 1996, 55-year-old John Reynolds was found dead inside his Christchurch scrap metal yard. Police were immediately called to the scene. One of the first officers to arrive was Detective Sergeant Richard McCaskill.
By the time we got there, of course, it was dark. Of course, we saw the deceased not far from the front entrance and the door in the location that he was in. And we could see with torchlight the environment that we were going to have to deal with. The interior was very untidy. Stacks of scrap iron, scrap metal in various forms in various areas. The floor was basically oily, dusty and dirty. It was a narrow alleyway of drums and some rubbish to get to the deceased body.
It was immediately evident John's death wasn't an accident.
From the injuries that John had sustained, it was fairly obvious that he had been bludgeoned to death. And the amount of blood that was surrounding the body, it was definitely a violent death that he had met.
John had taken a single fatal hit to the back of the head, and analysis of his injuries revealed some startling insights.
My reconstruction was of the offender coming at John from behind him, and that John either saw a shadow or something move and turned to face his assailant. And in doing so, that's when he gain a slight defence injury, but because the blow was already raining down on him, he wasn't able to defend himself, and the blow struck his head and it dropped him. And he was on his back. And yeah, no signs of any struggle. So from that point of view, yes, it would have been over in a second, and it was over very, very quickly. We searched for a murder weapon, which could have readily have been available within the site and within the scene. We didn't find anything that indicated or had blood, flesh, hair or skin on it. We had the specialist search teams came in and they searched the roof, the gutters, not only of that building but adjoining buildings as well. The scene surrounding the premises was searched thoroughly. The railway track across the road and that vicinity was also searched, and we found nothing that we could regard as a murder weapon. So the weapon or whatever was used to kill John was either brought to the scene, found at the scene, but whichever way, it was removed from the scene.
Despite the lack of a murder weapon, other forensic evidence was gathered in the hope it would shed some light on John's killer.
Blood samples were taken, fingerprints were taken. There were photographs taken of footprints that we believed to be in blood. We also took luminol testing. There was nothing evidential revealed.
Further questioning of locals and area canvassers led to nothing. The police soon switched their focus to motive. The most obvious was robbery.
Yeah, that came up during the inquiry, and certainly we were curious about that because throughout the building, with the initial examination, we found no cash or very little cash on the premises. However, when the body was lifted, we found out that there was money in his back pocket. And I think from recollection, there was around about $2,500 in cash in his back pocket, which we were rather surprised at, because if the motive for the homicide had been robbery, we would have anticipated or expected that at least somebody would have rifled through or searched his pockets.
Another possible motive was that John had annoyed someone in his business dealings.
I no doubt, being in the scrap metal industry and the scrap metal game, he would have probably garnered a few enemies around town. It can be a fairly ruthless game to be in. There's a lot of stolen property in metal that gets transferred through metal yards, and not all metal yard merchants, being second-hand dealers, necessarily kept accurate records as they're supposed to.
Well, I'd heard rumours that he might have been dealing in some stolen material, and not scrap, maybe something else. So, you know, you lie down with dogs, you get fleas, so.
Michael Rollo, a fellow scrap dealer, remembers the rumours associated with John and his business.
Didn't have a lot to do with John. Went looking for some stolen material at his yard once, and I'd already recovered some, and he wanted to buy it from me, and I said, no, I'm not selling. I'm looking for material that's been stolen. He didn't really seem like the sort of guy that you'd go to and say, hey, listen, can you get me such and such, and the next week such and such would appear. It might just sort of be like someone maybe coming and sell him some scrap. Oh, hey, you're not interested in a lawnmower, are you? And, you know, maybe a lawnmower appeared the next week, or I really don't know.
In the 90s, the scrap metal industry was largely unregulated, and some customers operated outside the law.
It was probably mostly itinerant people going from town to town. You'd maybe flog something in one town and sell it in the next. That consisted of probably guys that were jumping over P&T fences back in the day and flogging a roll of copper wire or whatever. So before we turned to kilograms, you were getting 40 cents a pound for copper wire. So you only had to jump over the fence one night a week and you'd probably make a week's wages.
I think John probably kept a fairly low profile within the industry. He certainly hadn't come to my notice in my career in the police before, but that's not to say that he wasn't known.
I know someone that used to work with him.
I've been doing my job. I've been doing this job for so long.
They didn't have a very good rapport with him at all.
I'm going to get my money. I'm going to get my money out of you one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a bit mean to them, so.
You know what? I quit.
John dealt with all sorts of people. Was someone he traded with capable of murder? Sensing Murder is investigating the cold-blooded murder of scrap metal dealer John Reynolds, who was bludgeoned to death in April 1996. As was his routine, the 55-year-old had been working alone in his yard on the weekend.
Sunday there would be no one around. I mean, that part of town is really quiet as opposed to during the working week. So someone must have been planning it for a long time. It wouldn't have been something that would have happened, you know, spontaneously, I don't think.
He might have arranged to meet somebody there, to buy something or to do a deal, or otherwise, yeah, people might have known he was open.
There was a lot of bikies at that stage selling scrap. There was one or two people in the yard there with John that I didn't like.
It was someone he knew. Whether, like I say, he'd been talking to them outside and gone back in and out, I don't know, or they just waited and waited and waited until he was about to leave.
I don't think it was planned. I think the death or the cause of death was brought about by something or someone that had a split moment to determine giving John a whack over the head. Whether that was the intended consequence, I don't know. I don't think we'd ever know, but it was certainly the result. My gut feeling is one person, but equally it could be two. I don't think it's more than that, but I think it's one person. To have kept a secret like this for so long, that adds weight to my feeling that it's one person.
Go into your little back room and get your bloody cash out, mate.
Probably somebody would have seen where he kept his cash at times, yeah. Because he just kept it in a drawer in his office when he was working, but he took it away later.
I'm going to get my money. I'm going to get my money out of you one way or the other.
He obviously upset somebody.
In my gut, I feel that it's one of, you know, perhaps a loser, druggie.
You know what? I quit.
Who had planned it. I just hope that his next fix was worth it for him.
Who that person is, where that person is, I don't know. And if they think about it every day, it would be nice that they could come forward and at least get it off their chest and give the family some closure, and certainly let the police put this one to bed in the right way.
The daughter of murder victim John Reynolds has come to Sensing Murder seeking justice. She hopes our psychics can use their powers to discover who is responsible for the death of her much-loved father. Joining us are three of Australasia's top psychics, Deb Webber, Kerry Marie Callender and Karen Anderson. The rules of Sensing Murder are clear. The psychics are given no prior information about the victim or the filming locations. They are filmed on separate days. Their job is to provide the victim's name, age, sex and occupation, and details about how, where and when the victim died. Correct answers are sometimes confirmed by the film crew. Each psychic is given a downturned photograph. They have 8 hours to communicate with the spirit of the victim.
Well, straight away, I've got a very strong energy here, a very strong person. I've got quite an organised person, actually. Straight to the point. I want to straight to the point. Made it their own decision. Want to be their own boss. He wants to sort this out, whatever's happened, and I get he. So I'm getting a male. I'm getting a strong male energy with this person.
Male is, I want to go brown hair. He's medium to tall, not overly tall.
I wouldn't say he's overly tall in height. Like, I don't feel like he's 6 foot. But not, I mean, he's not short.
I have a sense too, I feel darker hair with him.
Brown hair colouring.
Maybe he did have dark hair and he was starting to go grey.
On different days, all three psychics appear to be connecting with the spirit of John.
He's quite proud of the way he looks, like maybe does a little bit of fitness.
So I'd say solid, but not fat. I sort of want to say I feel broad-shouldered, actually. I also want to say that they're quite physically fit, physically fit.
He's got a really strong accent, whatever it is. You can tell that he's been in the country for quite some time, though, like for years, because it's still really sharp and it's still there. But he's definitely, he's been here for a long time, many years.
Deb is correct. John had a strong Northern English accent and had lived in New Zealand for over 30 years.
He must be very close to his friends, like loyal.
I get a sense that quite popular, someone that people looked up to, someone held and had a lot of faith in.
He lived a fairly quiet existence, humble, nothing out of the ordinary. He's not coming across extremely boisterous to me or anything. I think he's got a strong personality, but I've got this real gentleness around this fella.
I'm getting a sex person that was calm but confident, knew what they wanted, knew where they were going.
Nothing fazed him. Like, I don't get the feeling that anything fazed him. He would be approachable, he would approach others.
I get a sense that his name's sort of a basic name. I don't feel it's anything fancy. I don't want to say it's it's almost like a common name. I want to say it's a common name.
Flicking a J at me for some reason. I think J's the first letter of his first name.
Joe?
Is it Joe or John?
I feel it's like no more than 4 letters or 5 letters. It's like something like Tom, John.
I want to reference a John.
J-O. So we got the name John. John.
I'm hearing the name John. Your name's John. Yeah, John.
Home was really important to him. Like, he made a stable home, a balanced home.
He'd like to be the head of the family. That's what I get, very much the head of the family. And loves his partner.
I think he loved his wife very much, actually, because when I ask about wife, I've just got tears.
And I get a sense I have 2 children.
There's a boy and a girl coming into his energy.
I've got 2 children. I've got a son and I've got a daughter.
I get him being quite close with the girl, and emotionally it's a real struggle.
Because the daughter must be still heartbroken or something here, because I feel as though she's just aching all the time.
And I'm getting the name of Sean. Sean. Connecting this to my son. Connecting to my son, Sean.
All 3 psychics are correct. John loved his wife and was devoted to his 2 children, Lara and Sean.
I'm also very close to my mum.
I actually feel that he was really close to his mum for some reason.
Pull with mother's house, there's a strong pull to go to mother's house.
I have to wonder if his dad had passed.
I want to reference the name Thomas.
Thomas. So there's John, and there's me, and there's someone called Tom or Thomas, like an older man, strong man, like a dad, a father.
I'm a little bit anxious when I'm saying that name now. There's a little bit of he's not feeling 100%.
John had a strong bond with his mother, but his relationship with his father Thomas was strained. On different days, but around the same time in each reading, the psychics decide to turn the photo over.
Real sadness with this guy, though. There's sadness with him as well. He's had some difficult times.
Australia's coming in quite a lot.
I wanted to put things behind me. I wanted to leave the past behind and start a new slate in my life. So there's things in my past that I wasn't happy about. I was tired of it all. I wanted to move forward. It feels that something also from my past has caught up with me.
John spent a short time in Australia before coming to New Zealand. Did something from his previous life follow him here? Sensing murder psychics Deb Webber, Kerry Marie Callender and Karen Anderson are digging through John Reynolds' former life.
He's a strong person and organised, like to have everything in order, like to be in charge, like things to have done his particular way.
He liked things done properly. He liked things like routine.
Do it my way, sort of a little bit like my way or the highway sort of thing, a little bit. He could get a bit angry at times as well.
There's a lot of caution coming in, like trusting, feeling, sort of like a cautious side and a concerning side. So his energy would fluctuate.
Also quite practical. I feel he's quite a practical person, like to tinker.
I think he must have tinkered with mechanical stuff every so often, maybe cars or something.
He enjoyed that because he's fairly analytical. And so he'd get his head into doing things and tinkering. He did something he really enjoyed doing.
Feels like he had a collection of maybe coins or something, stamps or something like that.
Just saw somebody digging with a shovel.
Because he's talking about a shovel.
Seeing somebody like digging with a spade, a long-handled spade.
Someone getting shovels? Like digging something up?
There's a collection of something, and funny, I want to go to motorbikes then, which is really weird. But I think the collection's small things or something here. Could you put his collection on a wall? I'll have to look up. There's things on a shelf, and as I look down, bottles.
Just got some whiskey bottles on a row.
But there's bottles down on the ground. There's bottles on shelves then, because there's bottles. Must have a lot of bottles. Looking down, there's a clutter of about half a dozen bottles, but I'd say the bottles are increase the number of bottles, and then you've got his collection.
John collected antique bottles, which he kept in his garage at home and at his scrap metal yard.
I get a sense he didn't live too far from work. Not too far from work.
I don't feel like I have to go too far away from where I'm sitting right now. It just 5-10 minutes, 10-15 maybe at the max.
On the outskirts of the city.
Just on the outskirts of town, like not in the city.
John's business, Garden City Scrap, was located on the edge of Christchurch in the suburb of Sydenham.
I don't think he wore suits. I think he wore work clothes. It's like a uniform, but it's not a uniform. It's something you'd wear in like a factory or something.
I'm also wanting to go to a factory. I'd say it's a medium-sized factory.
I'm getting like a factory, some sort of factory workers, and also like a warehouse. I feel like a warehouse.
It's quite old. It's not a modern building. And it feels like it's quite big.
Inside the factory, just different feelings of different things.
Paint.
There's
shelves.
Then there's like vehicles, then there's like machinery.
And I get things as like you say, oil.
I'm getting pallets to one side.
I get products and there's like things in a warehouse.
A whole lot of crates like stacked up.
I'm seeing like a forklift.
The psychics are all correctly describing John's premises. Can they identify what he did for a living?
For some reason, I feel like he did heavy work.
I get to do with his job. I still feel like I want to do something with my hands.
You know how they work on sheet metal or iron or heavy machinery?
Metal, I'm seeing lots of metal around.
Metal. So I'm thinking trucks and bikes, cars.
There's also a vehicle that's just come in with a, I want to go tip tray, like small little truck. So that may be workman's truck. And when I see it, it almost looks like it's white or an off-white.
Sheet metal or scrap metal, because things are getting pulled, things are getting pulled to bits. I think he spent a lot of his time working with metal, pulling bits to pieces because he's tinkering with a lot of stuff, and you have to buy that stuff, buy it and then resell it. So he'd make a lot of money. There was money going through. I keep seeing money now. Yeah, so he must have had a good lot of money, but it's cash. I'm seeing cash. A lot of cash.
Deb's right. John was in the scrap metal trade and dealt in cash.
He's either got men working for him or with him. I'm getting working with men.
I think wherever he worked, there were mainly men, not women.
And I want to reference like orders, people telling people what to do, like orders.
And the funny thing is, when I think about it, he's not actually answering to anyone else either. But there are people around, so he worked with other people every so often. But he's not answering to anyone.
It's almost like a foreman sort of feeling, like in charge, sort of like that sort of feeling with his personality.
He's a boss, he's the boss, and he's the leader, and I'm getting men working for me, so I organise the men.
John owned his own business and was a hard taskmaster.
He sort of got annoyed if things weren't in order, or things he wanted them to be.
I've been doing my job. I've been doing this job for so long.
Because he had very high expectations of his work and of his workers.
You need me more than I need you.
He will confront people straight up, very a confronting person.
I quit.
So even though it's one, there's also someone else involved. There's not just one person involved.
Again, he just said something about a gang member.
What's your problem with it?
I'm not so popular with this person.
Mate, you're going to pay whatever.
There's a bit of an argument with someone.
Just piss off.
I'm getting a clash of personality.
Someone had an issue with him.
It's just, he said this male didn't like me.
We've been watching you, boy.
I needed to teach him a lesson.
Did John rub someone up the wrong way? Was he the victim of a premeditated act? Or was his death the result of a random attack? Sensing Murder psychics are connecting with the spirit of John Reynolds, a scrap metal dealer who was murdered in 1996. Attention now shifts to the day of John's death.
I'm trying to work out where he was when this. I know I feel like he's in the warehouse, or he's been in the warehouse. He's definitely been in the warehouse. I have to wonder if he was working or at work.
See, near work, he must have been coming home from work or near work or something, because that work keeps coming up into it. So it could have actually been just after work that this happened.
Just it was something about noon time. Something happened at noon time because I'm getting 12 o'clock.
Feels like he was on his own at the time.
I feel he went to work on the weekend, but he tended to go the same day every weekend. If he's going to go to work, he'd always go the certain day. This is Sunday.
The psychics are correct. John was working on a Sunday, about to finish at noon.
I almost feel also, I feel straight, loved his work, but there's something about not feeling safe at work. So there's been something going on at work, not feeling safe at work. So something was going on.
I'm aware of people targeting that area and watching that area because it's like that area's not safe.
They used to watch me come and go, so they actually knew my timing, and he was just completely off guard. I get off guard.
Police do not believe that John's murder was planned, but the psychics see his last moments quite differently.
It's almost like I feel like I'm sitting down. Like it's at noon, but I feel like I'm working and I'm writing or something at a desk or...
John's sitting at a desk on a calculator, like doing figures.
My mind's in something, like I'm really involved in something. I'm not... Yeah. I was concentrating on something and then I felt someone behind me. He's talking about someone coming through the door.
I feel like he was just pounced, like he was just attacked. Blow to the head. And that was it was like instantaneous.
Now I'm just getting a pain on my left-hand side of my head right here.
Like whack.
So I'm getting something just there.
Head, like holding my head.
So it's like my whole head just vibrates with pain.
That to me is like possibly head trauma.
No, every time he does that, it takes the air out of my lungs. So I'm wondering if the air out of the lungs, like,
I'm gasping for breath. Took my breath away.
And then down.
His energy's just gone sideways, like fallen sideways.
It's like whatever hit him must have pretty much killed him straight away.
The coroner concluded that John was killed with one hit to the back of the head.
He said to me, I was left bleeding.
Yeah, he just shows me blood.
So there's obviously a lot of blood. I was left bleeding. I didn't suffer too long. I didn't die straight away. I think I was left to bleed to death.
John, I feel, pretty much died instantly because I can't feel any pain. Like I can feel the hit to my head and then I just see black. And it's just he just got a blow to the head and it all went black and he pretty much died instantly, by what I can tell. So he didn't feel anything except that.
I was caught off guard. I just can't believe this has happened to me because I'd never let this happen to me. If someone tried something on, I would turn around and I would defend myself. So I was caught off guard. Can't believe this happened. It should not have happened. Because I had quite a bit of ability and I knew how to look after myself. And this has made me quite angry that someone's got the better of me. I want to get this sorted out. I do feel very angry about this.